Hi everyone, welcome to Flipping Feedback, engaging students in the feedback process.
Hey, we're glad you can be with us today. We are the presenters. I'll start by introducing myself. I am Kelly Blake Karstrand. I am a French teacher in Palos Heights, Illinois at Shepherd High School. I have been teaching French for 25 years, all levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and AP. And at one time or another, I've taught everything from kindergarten through university. And here's my colleague, Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Hernandez. I also teach in the same district as Kelly, but I teach at another school in Blue Island, Illinois. This is my 8th year teaching, and I am a Spanish teacher who's taught levels 1 through 4 for non-native speakers, as well as AP Spanish language.
Just to let you know that we will be monitoring this as you're watching the recording right now. So if you have questions, please feel free, pop them in the chat. We are here in real time, so we'll be able to answer them. There also is, there'll be a time at the end, like 5 minutes or maybe more, depending on how long it takes us to record, that we can do like a live Q&A. So if there's any more in-depth questions, we will be able to answer them at the end. Okay, so what are our goals for today? We have 4 things that we want to make sure we accomplish in our session. First, what we're going to talk about is give a definition of what is peer feedback and why is this important. So we're going to throw a little bit of theory at you, but not too much. We will show you how we, for the AP classroom, scaffold our feedback process. We're going to go through one of our task feedback loops so you can see exactly how we do it and how it is scaffolded.
Okay, we're also going to go over what does this actually look like now in the midst of a pandemic in a remote or hybrid learning scenario, and then talk about also what do students do with this feedback once it's given.
All right, so we thought we would start first with just a little bit of what is peer feedback. I think as teachers, we struggle sometimes with feedback on its own when we're giving feedback. How much is too much? What's a good amount of feedback? How do we do it? And how do we make it so students can feedback to each other? So this is a definition that we found that Anna and I both really liked, that commentary given from one student to another that provides them with the opportunity to learn from one another. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we stressed here is to make sure that when students are giving peer feedback, they are supposed to be looking at the task, whether it's their speaking tasks or their writing tasks, as being a reader or a listener. They're not necessarily an evaluator. Do you want to add to that, Anna?
Yeah, just a little bit. Talking about feedback and what does it look like. Here's another source we took from Edutopia. It's the acronym SPARK. So what does good feedback actually look like? It's specific, meaning that any commentary that the student gives is directly related to the task. Prescriptive, meaning that it actually gives them a strategy or offers a solution in order to improve work. Okay. Actionable, meaning that when the student reviews the actual peer feedback, they can do something with that feedback. Referenced, meaning that it relates specifically to a requirement of the task. And kind, obviously. It's always nice to be kind and support everyone through the learning process.
One of the things that Anna and I really were working on when we decided to come up with this, both as AP teachers, was to make sure that we were struggling with our students being able to give real feedback. And that's how we kind of came up with our talk, what is feedback? Because of course, students read someone else's work or they're listening to their audio and they're like, oh, it was great. It was so good.
I
And
really liked it. Good job.
really, exactly. So we wanted to make sure, how are we going to teach the students to give real feedback? And one of the things that we wanted to stress also with this, that the student, as they read or listen to their peer, is that when we said they're going to be they're not an evaluator here. right? So we wanted to make sure that they're there just as a help, but also if they're just a reader or a listener, that kind of means too that they can take the information from their peer and decide how they can use it or if they're going to use it. So you'll see as we walk you through this, through the steps, that we really tried to make it so that they can learn how to give real feedback that has all of those acronyms in there, all of those sparks. Okay. So anyway, why is this important? We're busy. Okay. Especially those of us that are AP teachers. And if you have more, Anna has 3 sections of AP Spanish. So, I mean, being able to give really good feedback for all of these, for all of the tasks and all of the practices they're doing is really hard for us. In addition to, and I'll speak for the French teachers, sometimes we're teaching 1, 2, 3, 4, and AP all in the same semester or throughout the same year. And so we just don't have tons of time in order to do it. So that's the first thing we came up with. How can we take a little bit of the burden off of us for the grading, but still make sure that the kids are getting really good feedback on their writing so that they can improve their writing and improve their speaking.
And I'll just piggyback off what Kelly was saying. I would spend so much time giving feedback for me to later see like their papers in the trash. And so I would think, well, why did I spend all of my time giving feedback when they didn't value it? So part of this peer feedback process is sometimes because we know our students are teenagers, if they hear it from somebody else and not the adult, they're more likely to actually take that into consideration.
For sure. So now here we have, not only are we busy, but then what are some other benefits rather than taking a little bit of burden off of us, which we know we need? What are going to be the other benefits? So I will talk one of them we came up with, and you may have some other ideas too. And if you have ideas of like other benefits of peer feedback, this would also be a great thing to put in the chat right now. So one of the things is students are writing and speaking for an audience. We're giving them an audience, right? Sometimes they think if they're just writing for their teacher or writing for the test, it's not the same thing. And AP is asking them to present to an audience, and we're giving them more of an audience to do that. Student ownership, right? They're now a stakeholder in the learning process. So many of the things that we're trying to do is have our classrooms be student-centered. And this is a great way because they're going to learn not only through looking at someone else's writing, but it's going to make them look at their own writing or speaking in a different, really through a different lens. Anna, do you want to finish with this?
And that kind of talks to the process of like metacognition. So when students are looking at someone else's work, and then when they reflect on the feedback that they've been given, they're really, whether they're cognizant of it or not, examining their own thought processes and how did I complete this task? How does it compare to the work that I'm looking at? And how can I improve my work? This also helps to increase their communication and collaboration skills, which again, when we're talking about a student-centered classroom, that's what we want. We want students interacting with each other and being part of the learning process. And of course, this idea of reflecting back on what we've already done instills a growth mindset. Okay. Maybe I haven't met all the requirements of the task, but it's because I'm not there yet. It's not that I can't, I'm just not there yet. I'm not 100%. Okay. And again, just to reiterate a little bit and throw a little bit of theory in there with student ownership in the classroom, this is an agenda for new learning and assessment. And this comes from the research of Doctors Culp and Kalansis. But really, the peer feedback process talks about recursive feedback loops. Okay. And focusing on this agenda, we have the 3 things that we're using as kind of guiding principles for this process, which includes metacognition, okay, thinking about our own thinking, collaborative intelligence, that's the interaction between yourself and your peers and the work, and then of course the feedback, okay, we can use feedback as formative assessment. Where am I now? Where do I need to go?
So what did this look like in what does this look like in our AP classes? So the first thing that we decided we have to do, and this is, we will say it, scaffold, scaffold, scaffold. And if you don't walk your students through the process of how they are going to give feedback, you will end up with this, I really liked it. It was really good. right? And then, I mean, it's always nice to get that pat on the back, sure, but we want to make sure that the kids are learning from reading these as well. And it also, I think there's that notion that kids don't want to be mean to their peers. So where they don't want to give, I don't want to say criticism, but we'll say, what's the word I'm looking for, Anna? Not criticism to their peers, but they don't want to say that something's lacking, right?
Mhm.
So this kind of gives kids permission through our checklist that we're going to take you through the steps, gives them permission. They have to say what's lacking, what you can improve upon. So it kind of, I think, takes that burden off of like, I don't want to say anything mean because I want to make sure that people think I'm nice, or that they're not going to hate me because I tell them like their cultural comparison is lacking. So this kind of keeps, I think, takes a lot of the burden off of them. We came up with a 4-step process for each of the AP tasks. And what we will say to you first is also remember, before you start this, we would model the process for every step before we have the students do it. So we as teachers would take step 1 and go through how to do step 1 together with the students on a sample speaking or the sample writing or whichever task we're working on, so that they see how we go through it before we put it out to the kids.
Yep. And just to reiterate what Kelly said, in this case, students aren't evaluating each other's work. They're being a critical friend. They're offering suggestions for improvement.
Hmm. I like that. Critical friend. Let's remember that.
Okay, so step 1, task requirement checklist. So here we have an example, and at the end of our presentation, you will receive a link to all of these resources. They're all in English, but you would change them for whatever your target language is. So the first step is, do students understand the requirements of the task? Okay, and again, like Kelly said, prior to them completing this task for the first time, the teacher has provided direct instruction on what are the required elements. So in this example, this is for the email response, which is the first FRQ for the AP language exams. We have all the requirements, and it's just a simple yes, no.
So they're really making sure, and again, this would follow, as we said, after the students already know what the requirements are. So maybe this is after their first or second time, just making sure, did you get them all in there? Now, when we move to the second, this is when there's going to be a little bit more. So not only are they saying what's the positive aspect, or do you need to improve it? So they're kind of looking at it again, but we're saying, are they now satisfying the requirements appropriately? Step 1, is it there? Step 2, are you doing it the right way? Is it appropriate? So if you look at this step here, you can kind of see that we have like a yes. If you look, the first column is the positive or a suggestion for improvement. So like the email is clearly formal and respectful. Yep. Okay, good. Or there are examples of inappropriate or informal language. The kids are using the to form in French. Okay, so again, it's still just a checklist, but now we're kind of bringing up that scaffold just a little bit. This is also the first time that students are going to be required to react to the given feedback. Step 1, as Anna said, it's just, is it there? Is it not? Is it there? Is it not? Is it there? Is it not? They're going to get it back and they're going to look, right? Now they're going to get their feedback back from their peer, from their, what was their critical friend? What was it, Anna? Critical friend. Okay. And they're going to be able to look at it and say, I agree with this, or I disagree because. All right. So like some of them easy. If they're using the to form, I don't know what they're going to disagree upon. But it really makes them now think about this feedback and then write a couple of sentences about it.
And what I
Anything more to
really like
add?
about this is when we're looking at the aspects, the positive aspects, and then the suggestions for improvement, as you can see in these 2 columns, they correspond. So maybe I have some things in the left-hand column and some things in the right-hand column, but that's okay because again, we're just on step 2.
Right.
Okay, moving on to step 3. Now we're providing students with the opportunity to give open-ended commentary, and we're using a strategy that is called 2 stars and 1 wish. Okay, the purpose of using this type of feedback protocol is, can students identify strengths in the writing or the speaking, and then areas where their peer can improve. Okay, so for the 2 stars, we have 3 sentence starters, and students would just have to complete 2 of these. All right. For the 1 wish, that would be the area of suggestion, and they would only complete 1 of those.
Mhm. I'm not sure we were clear enough to make sure that as we're looking at this, like as we're going, this is again just through the email. It's not that we're taking one email and having them do three steps. Step one is with an email that they wrote, like email about, I don't know, that they're replying to a school. Step two is after they do another email. Step three is going to be after they do another email. So this would be their third attempt at an email, possibly more than their third attempt, because maybe we did an email, like we did one or two before we even started this peer feedback, so that they would understand a little bit. So not only are our students who are the students who are um, giving their work to their critical friend getting better at it and understanding the task better, but I now, as a reader, understand a little bit better. So I'm going to look at this and be able to say, like, right away, I like the way that you made a personal connection in this email. I like the way that you said you've always wanted to study in Senegal, so this is what I've always wanted to do. You made a great personal connection. But maybe I think it would be clearer if you asked a question that refers back to Senegal a little bit, and about the prompt more. So they're understanding more, like, oh, I get how I'm starting to think how to write a good question. I'm making sure, like, you did an excellent job of answering question two because you were really clear and gave details in your answer. So they're getting better at it, and our student, like, both are getting better at it. So they're able to see it. Where in step one, it was just like, is there a question? Did they answer question one? Did they answer question two? Did they sign, did they give a formal greeting? Did they, did they give a formal closing? Now, that probably wouldn't be something that they're talking about here. Those elements are there, and we're talking more about details, which is scaffolding.
That's a really good point, Kelly. I'm glad that you brought that up. And two, because this is at least the third email they've written, okay,
Mhm.
throughout the school year. Um, Now they are developing an action plan. So in step two that Kelly just talked about, they had to reflect on the feedback, but now they have to actually do something a little bit more nuanced with that feedback. What are they going to continue to do well? And how can they improve upon their work? Okay. We do have some suggestions here, and these are things that we took from different components on the AP rubric, but students also have the opportunity to write in something else
Mhm.
as they see fit.
Mhm. Yep. Feed forward. And then finally, what we come to step four is when they're actually then looking at the AP inspired rubric. Now, that rubric is, I don't know, even as a teacher, I find it a little difficult sometimes to grade with it. So, what we have done, and we're certainly not the only teachers that have done this, because I've seen it, other teachers do the same thing, but they've taken the AP task and put it in this rubric form to make it a little bit more manageable for us and for the students. So what we did is we took all those bullets of the five, right? And we put them in all the fives and the fours, the threes, two ones. And we took all of the different things and kind of made it a little bit more comprehensible. So we're going to ask the students now to use the AP rubric and really say, as they're looking at it, and again, this is a minimum fourth email that they have written. So they should be pretty well acquainted by really now saying, not only do you have it there, is it appropriate? Step three was a little bit more like, what's the word I'm looking, just what was really good, what could you improve upon, what did I already really like, what do you do well, and now we're saying, can you kind of put it in a rating? So again, as you're looking at this, we put the appropriate task, comprehensibility, register. Those are all of the things that we came up with from the AP rubric itself. So can they assess the proficiency level of that task completion, and where are you in those levels? Also, now the students are going to reflect upon it again. So they are going to reflect on their implementation of, if you remember, Anna pointed out in step three, they were coming up with an action plan. How did the action plan go? Is basically what we're asking them now. So, based on what their peer, their critical friend, is giving them on that rubric, what were they really successful in, right? If they weren't successful in something, how do I reach the next level? What is it that I need to do to get to that next level? I'm only at a three on my sentence structure. How do I get to a four on sentence structure so that I get to that higher AP grade?
And again, this is like that metacognition. What have I done how can I improve for next time?
Mhm.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in remote or hybrid learning, depending on what model your school is using right now? Okay, one way you can do this is through peer collaboration using G Suite apps, okay, like Google Docs or Google Forms. What you could do is you could take one of the task steps, any of the steps that we outlined, and just make it into a Google Doc, push it out through Google Classroom, and use the option make a copy for each student. So then that way each student can make changes based on the feedback that they're given. You can also do this with a Google form, especially for the tasks like step one and step two, where they're just checklists. These are kind of nice areas where you could use a Google form. It's super simple just to plug in the questions. And then you can actually look as a teacher, um, based on a whole, you can do a kind of a quick formative assessment like, oh, I can see a lot of students are struggling with register. Maybe that's something I need to do a quick reteach on.
Yep. Another thing, if you do not have your students in class, currently in our district, there's some are on Zoom, some are in the class, and then it switches the next day. So remember, one of the great ways is to do virtual collaboration. So whether you are using Zoom, then you can create breakout rooms, there's Google Meets, and each student can still kind of already have their own they can have their own checklist in front of them. It could still be a virtual checklist that they're doing or something, an electronic checkout list, but we can put them in breakout groups so just the two people are talking at a time. And then, of course, the teacher can pop in and out if they want, depending. Maybe you want to just let them to say, you've got 15 minutes to talk or you've got 10 minutes. Then we'll come back. I'm going to let you just talk. But that's a great way to get kids, of course, speaking one on one at the same time.
Yeah, and I've definitely had a lot of success using breakout rooms and allowing the students to share their screen if that's something that your district will allow, because then it allows them to look at the exact same thing as their peer at the same time.
Mhm.
If you're techie like me, there is the option to use this site that is called PeerGrade. It's peergrade.io, not peergrade.com. Okay, because it is a startup company. That's what the IO stands for. Right now, they're offering a pro trial for 30 days, or you can use a free version, and it's a different website. It's eduflow.com. But basically, what happens is students upload their work to this website. And the classroom, I should say, on PeerGrade or EduFlow talks with your Google Classroom, meaning that you don't have to create a separate account. Students don't need all these different logins. You just import your roster straight from Google Classroom. You create an assignment on PeerGrade. And what students do is they submit their assignment, and then PeerGrade, the website itself, actually randomly assigns the work for peer review. And you, as the teacher, can set the settings where they can be anonymous or non anonymous. You can require them to do X amount of reviews. You can withhold feedback until they submit their feedback. So there's a lot of different options. It's super techy, but if you're up for the challenge, I highly recommend checking out PeerGrade or EduFlow.
Okay, that is the presentation, which we were, as Anna and I were talking about this, like this is going to be a little strange to record together and give our presentation. So we might have gone a little fast, so we have a ton of time because we've only taken 24 minutes so far. So if you have any questions, we can open it up to live questioning, I believe right now. If you have any Q&As, if you have any Qs, we'll try to give you an A. Um, So we just hope that you understood that basically our main goal here was to show you some tools that we've used that have helped our students improve their AP tasks. And as I said, we have found that most of our students are really good at like by giving that feedback, their own writing and speaking is hopefully also improving. And don't forget too, even though these are geared towards the AP tasks, you can use these 4 steps in any level. You just have to change your rubrics a little bit or change your steps or whatever it is that you're looking for to match whatever task you're doing in level 2 or level 3 or level 4.
And Kelly and I have also had a lot of success with introducing AP-esque tasks in the lower levels and kind of scaffolding instruction that way. So when students get to AP, the fact that they have to write an email response is not something that completely shocks them. Okay, well, we just want to thank you guys so much again for attending our session. Here we do have our contact information, so please feel free if you have any questions at a later date, like right now you just can't think of it or you're just trying to process the peer feedback process, please feel free to reach out.
Mhm.
But right now we're going to open it up to questions. We can address anything that you type in the chat, or if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question live.
Great. We also wanted to point out that right here are links to that we have a QR code that links to our resources. So all of the 4 AP tasks, we have all 4 steps for all of the tasks. We also have a PDF of this presentation just in case. And again, once you go through it again, if you have any questions, there are both of our emails. There is our Twitter handle. I also have a website, which is msmadam.com. I'll have the resources on my website as well. And questions.